Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to another weather forecast here by Adrian of the Forecast. Is going to be another update on the upcoming potential for back-to-back severe weather outbreaks in the deep south later upcoming early next week. And we are watching out. This is actually the first time I believe ever we've had 30% probability in the data for 4-3 at the exact same time. So we are definitely watching out for a very significant setup for 2 days. One being Monday and then one being on Tuesday. So watching out for the 21st and then watching out for the 22nd. So again, this is going to be an update on the timing as well, what we have so far, and just going over basically the overall model trends and exactly what has changed since my last forecast. So before we get in the video, I would recommend you guys subscribe to the channel, smash that like button and bell icon. But without further ado, let's get in the forecast. So basically what we're going to be looking at is first is the day 4, which is the first day we're watching out, which is Monday the 21st, and then day 5, 30%, which is Tuesday the 22nd. So this is going to be basically related to the exact same system. So this is the first time we do have 230s within the 4-3 at the exact same time. Then we have a 50% on day 6. So we have just a ton to watch out for in the next basically the next week or so. So 30% for day 4 across portions of east central Texas and as well far western Louisiana, likely to expand a lot further in either direction. Specifically, I'd say more towards the kind of Shreveport area and Texarkana area. I watch out for a 30% extension. As well, maybe a 15% chance or 15% extension. So 30% includes around 2.3 million people, including areas like Waco, Tyler, College Station, Longview, and Bryan, and then a 15% includes more of a populated area like DFW, Houston, DFW, Arlington, Austin, and then Houston. So we're gonna be watching out for some pretty. Let's go ahead and look at the overall wording for basically this general day. So let's see here. This is gonna be. Let's see here if I can even find the wording. There we go. So basically, day 4, we're gonna be looking at basically a surface low developing towards northwestern Texas. And we're going to be seeing a little southeasterlies ahead of the cold front will affect Gulf moisture across southeastern and into eastern Texas. Really, that's supporting thunderstorm development, which should persist through the evening and into the overnight hours, with strong southwesterly mid-level flow spreading atop the low-level southeasterlies/southeasterlies southerlies/southeasterlies. Shear will support organized supercell storms with all hazards severe, including a few tornadoes expected. We do have some pretty good instability here, and we're gonna be watching out definitely the chance for some, like I said, a few tornadoes. So they have a few, not a couple tornadoes. And then we look at day 5, which is definitely again another very interesting day. Again, 30% on day 5 isn't necessarily the most common, and typically when you get a 30% this far out, it's going to be a pretty scary color we're going to be seeing on day 1 if this were to verify. So day 1 includes more, of course, as this 850 millibar little jet and the really strong 500 millibar jet kind of basically comes in, sweeps across the Mississippi Valley. We're going to be seeing basically these storms and the overall system from Texas and Louisiana pushed eastward with this as we go the next day on. So it's going to be related to the day before. So 30% includes Louisiana and as well portions of really a lot of Mississippi into then and now and toward the border of Alabama. This includes Jackson, Mississippi, Meridian, Vicksburg, Mississippi, Clinton, and as well Pearl. And then the 50% is a lot more widespread than the 50% on day 4. And this is going to be basically from basically the Gulf Coast towards I say like close towards Tennessee, and then towards east central and eastern Alabama. This includes around 6 million people, including Birmingham, Baton Rouge, Montgomery, Mobile, and that general area. So let's go ahead and look at the wording for basically this. And again, we're gonna be watching out for basically, let's see here, gonna be looking at of course organized supercell storms. So you can see they have support organized supercell storms with all hazards severe risks, including a few tornadoes. And then again, we will be seeing this first across Alabama into Georgia Wednesday. through a stronger ascent, becoming somewhat removed from the more favorable thermodynamic environment. Overall severe risk may be a bit lower than prior days. Still potential for severe weather, including supercells, still appears a reasonable expectation, and thus will maintain 15% probability across Georgia and Florida. So again, this will still be pretty widespread across the general area. But looking at, of course, a lot of instability across the Alabama and Mississippi area. We're looking at potential for a few tornadoes will remain evident, along with hail and wind risk centered over Mississippi and extending to Alabama. Again, we do have some pretty apparent instability here with again a lot of mixed layer cape, strong veering flow with height, and as well we're gonna be seeing some really strong kinematic and thermodynamic support. So that's what we have so from the SPC. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the latest 18Z and 12Z model runs. So the first thing I want to do is go ahead and look at the latest 18Z NAM 4. Again, this for the NAM we're gonna be looking at just day 4, since that's actually in range on the NAM, just barely though. So let's go ahead and look at what the NAM has to say for the 21st. So there's that really strong system. So you kind of have a basically slightly positively tilted a trough moving in. So you're gonna be seeing that really strong kind of more of a Baja, getting close to a Baja low right here. At this point, by the 15Z and the 20th, you see that really strong orientation, positively tilted. You're going to be seeing your really strong positive vorticity convection across this general vicinity. And then you're going to be seeing, again, your axis. Basically, this is going to be your axis. And you're going to be seeing some really strong, since it is so positively tilted, you're going to be seeing your strongest axis towards the back end of the system. And that's what we're going to be looking at around 70 or even over surpassing 80 knots at 500 millibars. And then once this system in this upper level low starts to strengthen, it's going to start to swing negatively tilted. And this is why this is going to be perfect timing for the overall day 4, because by 21Z, basically overnight from Sunday into Monday morning, this trough is going to be swinging pretty strongly negatively tilted at this upper level low trough starts to strengthen, as well. That surface low will eventually strengthen as well and steepen. So there you see that pretty decent negatively tilted trough, and it's going to allow for kind of your I guess you could say your more amplified part of the trough will start to now kind of basically get swung across into the eastern side. So it's going to be kind of going to your warm sector. So this is going to be perfectly timed, and that's why this event really won't kick off till really after 18Z across this area. So we are looking at a pretty strong basically slightly negatively tilted. It's basically close to being neutral, but it's more towards negatively tilted than neutral. And you're going to be seeing that really strong southwesterly flow being brought up at around 75 to maybe even 80. Actually, it's going to be a little bit less, and that's going to be around 78 knots maybe in some cases. And then by 21Z and 0Z, you're going to be seeing, again, there's that really strong system. At this point, it's still mainly negatively tilted, and there you see that really strong 500 millibar. At this point, you're going to be seeing it come in basically at this point from the southwest and then straight up towards from the south. So at that point, we will be seeing becoming more of a huge threat for really well mature supercells. And then by 3Z again, you start to really amplify. This trough will continue to amplify, and then by 60, there you see around 80 plus knots, and that's going to allow for an overnight threat and even tornado threat across the Texarkana area. In those areas kind of on the 50% edge for day 4. Let's now go ahead and get a deeper look and a more zoomed in look on this region for day 4, which will be Monday. So you can kind of see the overall orientation, but this is going to be 850 millibars. So we're going to kind of be seeing how the 500 millibar differs from the 850 millibars, and obviously as long as they're perpendicular or somewhat perpendicular, we're going to be looking at a really more favorable towards a discrete mode. So there's this is going to be 90 on the Monday. So you're going to be seeing really strong already as this, oops, I didn't want to do that. Already a pretty strong 850 millibar flow coming in basically straight from the south. So it's going to really allow for this moisture, that kind of that baking, really humid, really just itchy, muggy air from the Gulf of Mexico that's been sitting there for a while is now going to get kind of just absolutely just pushed and forced northward into the warm sector, creating a pretty large open warm sector. So then by 15Z and 18Z, now by 18Z, This is when the event's going to start to kick off. There's your this is going to be your low pressure here. There's your 850 millibar low pressure. Of course, your surface low will be basically somewhat around that general area as well. So we are going to be watching out for these areas kind of developing along that area just off that dry line. But 18Z is going to be very interesting because that's where it starts to really strengthen this 850 millibar with, oops, my phone went off, with that upper level low. So at that point, that moisture is going to really kick in, that instability is going to really kick in, your overday heat is going to really kick in as well. So basically right around 21 Z's when your event's going to start to really kick off. And there you have a really impressive 850 millibar. You basically have 500 millibar type values here at 75 knots, 70 knots, but obviously that's going to be towards Oklahoma, where it's going to be a lot more colder, and your warm sector is not going to really be reaching that far up. So we're going to be really looking at more towards this area, towards kind of DFW, an area kind of just east of DFW. So let's just click a random sounding here with around 72 knots. Just south of DFW, and there's a really crazy sounding. Although again, it is capped. This is kind of right towards the start of this event. You're going to see how large these photographs are. And again, the NAM is veer bias. So if you do see some veer or some backing at around 2 kilometers, it's expected. It's the NAM. They have a pretty strong veer bias. But here's the overall kind of really type of photograph you're really looking for. You can kind of see it's well backed. You are definitely seeing those southeasterlies back to the surface, and you are seeing pretty apparent. Look at how strong that veering is right there at around 1 kilometer. You have some really strong veering with height, and that's going to allow for well mature supercells as well. Look at that storm relative helicity. We're talking 891, nearly 900 at 3 kilometers from the difference between surface and 3 kilometers. So that is a really perfect for your updraft, and it's definitely you're definitely going to be seeing some really high echo tops with these cells. And as we look at that shear though, 77 knots at 8 kilometers, 55 knots at 1 kilometer. Again, this is when the event's starting to just kick off, so really impressive photographs. Let's get closer towards DFW, and along that where that starts going to really start to form. And this is going to be a little bit better of an environment. 1400 Cape, you're going to be seeing still relatively high SRH, allowing for some pretty decent stretching in your vertical vorticity. And again, this is going to be orientation. You want to see a bit more of them. That once we get towards around 0Z, that's when you're going to start seeing a more perpendicular difference between your 850 millibar and or between your 1 kilometer, 6 kilometer. But here's another really nice photograph. This is actually does not really have any veer whatsoever. Yeah, again, it is capped, and it's a little bit higher up there, your LCL. But let's go towards now around 0Z. Again, really intense 850 millibar. This is really impressive values, and again, once it kind of gets towards that really unstable part of the warm sector, which would be around, again, east central Texas at basically 21Z, between 21Z and around after 0Z. Look at this sounding here. I mean, 1600 Cape, you really don't have that strong of a veer bias. You do have you're basically within a very like kind of east southeasterly, actually south. Hold on, that doesn't make sense. Yeah, east southeasterly, right here, basically really good instability. Your SRH is 400 between surface and 3 kilometer. Could be a little bit higher than that, but you can kind of see your orientation between your 1 and 6 kilometer wind bars are a little bit different. Look at that photograph. Don't look at the PDS possible hazard. That is very misleading. Although it was a pretty good sounding. Again, you're going to continue to see these really intense, really photographs, and very large photographs because of how intense this 850 millibar low jet is. It's very intense. Let's now go ahead and look at the overall warm sector and how expansive it's going to be. So let's now go ahead and get a look. So again, by 18Z, after 18Z, this is going to be just a blast of moisture, because that's when your 850 millibar is going to really allow to bring in and act as a transport for your moisture. So there's your surface low there. It's going to be at about 998 millibars by your kind of 21Z, there's 998 millibars, and just look how far that moisture goes up. So you can kind of see there's your, this is kind of your border here between your 59 and 60 right here. This is kind of your border between your 59 and 60 degree dew points. And then by 18Z, look how far it reaches up now towards the Oklahoma border. And there's a really strong surface system. There's your dry, or there's your dry lines basically like around right here. So you are going to be seeing some good dry line convection. And there, look at these kind of look at these overall um wind barbs here. You are seeing, if you get closer to the if you get closer towards the surface low, you're going to be seeing those southeasterlies. So that's where you're really watching out early on. Look at that really nice photograph. It is backed at the surface. It does obviously strongly varying with height. You do have 40 knots between surface and 3 kilometers. You do have around 80 at 8 kilometers. 1000 cape, you are definitely starting to see some pretty good instability here. This cape is still very thin. You can kind of tell between the partial temp and the actual environment temperature, but again, that will increase as we continue throughout the latent heat. By 0Z, this is when things to get very interesting, to say the least. By 0Z, there's your surface low right there towards the northeast or to the northwest, and that's when it really bring in those concerns for DFW, and then kind of those general areas across the warm sector. So it is a pretty expansive warm, or it's not the most expansive warm sector. It's definitely a pretty large warm sector considering the time of the year and just the overall location. But there you see those southeasterlies kind of towards north central Texas. You are going to be seeing some pretty impressive amounts of instability again. Look at that 1900 cape. You're going to be seeing, again, a veer back veer bias is going to be strongly visible across the NAM model. Again, that's just what they're known for. And then kind of once you go to 3Z, this will continue as this 850 millibar, continue to amplify and continue to be seeing really impressive photographs. This is definitely going to be kinematically driven. So this is, once you have that really good orientation as well, the instability will definitely be there because of that kinematics. You are going to be seeing a pretty significant tornado threat. So again, this is kind of why they have a 30% so far out, because of this really extreme setup. Again, the NAM is definitely not as intense as it was at 12Z. The 12Z NAM was a nasty, and I mean a nasty model, but the 18Z definitely has definitely calmed down a bit compared to the 12Z. But we will continue to see these trends. Let's now go ahead and look at the mixed layer cape here. So by 21Z, you already have a pretty good amount of instability here. You do have 2000 mixed layer cape. And then by 0Z, you're going to be seeing now nearly 2,500 mixed layer cape around the DFW area. And again, this is going to be carried by all this instability as well. Really moist environment, and as well pretty large open warm sector with kind of no rushing cold front that's going to be kind of really wasting its potential. You're not going to be seeing much morning convection here with this to kind of waste its waste the thermos really necessarily. So you are going to be seeing a pretty good setup. And I know these photographs are pretty bad, but again, you already know that we are going to be seeing very large and large photographs. And then to look at the 21Z again, 21Z towards the DFW area, definitely going to be an area to watch out for. We're going to be seeing pretty significant EMLs as well, so could definitely be seeing as well as some very significant hail. You do have a pretty large hail zone. There you see 3,000 cape here, surface-based cape, mixture cape 2,200. So going to be seeing a lot, and I mean a lot of instability within this day. Let's go ahead and look at the overall crossovers between the surface 850 millibars and the 500 millibars for day 4, and then we'll get into day 5. So let's go ahead and look at this is 21Z, this is 12Z, 18Z. By 21Z, you can kind of see the red is surface, the black is 500 millibars, and the blue is 850 millibars. So you can kind of see definitely kind of towards this general area, be seeing a little bit better of a crossover. And look at that photograph. I know it is cast, but that is your ideal photograph, like for a very large multi supercellular day. That's like a high ceiling day. That's a high echelon day right there. Photograph. But again, I know it is veer back veered, but that is your ideal photograph. So you are gonna be seeing those very large photographs. So you're gonna have to really watch out for these areas that kind of have like a built-in triangle. That is gonna be those kind of crossovers you're looking out for. By 0Z, you're gonna be seeing these continue to be pretty widespread. Your crossover difference isn't necessarily too large between your 850 millibar and your 500 millibar compared to your 12Z. But if you kind of go towards little bit further east, you are going to be seeing a lot bit more um, perpendicular shapes between your what's it called, between your crossovers at different heights. But this is a really good photograph. I mean, you obviously well backed, well veered. The instability is there for sure. Look at that. Actually, the instability is a little bit lackluster when you consider the Cape Valleys, but you do still have basically a 1,000 millislayer cape there. Look at the shear really high in the upper levels. SRH is pretty insanely high here, so definitely gonna be seeing some pretty intense rotating updrafts. And then by 3Z, definitely be watching out for Northeast Texas. They cannot be slept on, as well as you go towards kind of the border of Louisiana. You guys also have to watch out in the Texarkana vicinity. You guys could definitely get kind of some embedded tornado threats in the overnight hours as that low level jet amplifies overnight. But let's now go ahead and look at the day 5 as well. Day 5 is obviously very interesting. Let's now use a GFS for this. So again, the GFS is pretty much not necessarily too much different than the NAM when it comes to day 4. I mean, there's your really amplified, positively tilted trough. Again, your strongest part and your strongest vorticity will remain on the backside since it's positively tilted. But then it kind of swings once it kind of gets towards Baja, and once you kind of get towards the overnight on Sunday, it will swing pretty strongly, and that's going to allow for that kinematics and very well built and matured um, what's it called warm sector. And then let's now look at the 22nd. Again, this is going to be the day after. They're the 22nd at 18Z. There you see that really strong trough. It is going to bring in basically straight from the southwest. So you're going to be seeing kind of a warm sector that's going to be pretty widespread and pretty far north. So that's why we do have a pretty widespread 15%, because this is going to be shooting up straight up, basically straight up northwest. Unlike what we saw with the day before, where it's kind of shooting up like this a little bit, it's going to be a little bit colder, but when you're shooting up like that, that is going to allow for a pretty widespread warm sector, and definitely pretty common Dixie Alley event here. You have a really strong setup here, 90 knots at 500 millibars. You are going to be seeing insanely strong and apparent tornado threat if you have a kinematic setup and as well as thermo setup that we're looking at with this event. Look at 0Z. You are talking about 93 knots, 94 knots, 98 knots all across the Mississippi River Basin here. These are the 18Z GFS. This is just new in right now. That is insanely crazy. That is very intense. I mean, if you just look anywhere here, for example, let's go for Mississippi, you are going to be seeing, actually, let's go towards maybe 18Z and 21Z. You are going to be seeing some pretty insane photographs with this event. Let's go to, I guess, 3Z is right there. But yeah, you are going to be seeing some pretty intense tornado threats, because that is a really strong 500 millibar. I mean, that is a really insane 500 millibar right there. There is no joke about that. And there's that standing we're looking for right there. That is absolutely insane of a photograph. I mean, look at that. I'm just gonna go ahead and copy that image, but this is a insane photograph. It is well backed. It is veered all across the table. 2,400 cape. This is right here at 18Z, right there in Mississippi near Jackson. Let's go now right here towards the basin near Jackson. Again, you are going to be seeing absolutely insane profiles on this GFS. This is a huge concern if you're seeing this 5 days out. I mean, look at these photographs. These are ideal tornado outbreaks. We're talking like enhanced plus driven tornado events. This is your ideal photographs, well backed and large. I mean, this is absolutely insane. This 18Z GFS is definitely pretty scary when you take a deeper look at it. Let's not go ahead and look at the overall. Let's go back to the 18Z, since the 18Z is kind of in range here. So let's now go ahead and get a look here at the 850 millibar. And this is the first time I'm actually looking at the 18Z, because I was planning on using the 12Z, but I guess it took me too long to film the video. Let's go ahead and look. This is 18Z. You're basically getting straight from the south. So if you have kind of the orientation like that to that, you are going to be seeing a pretty widespread discrete mode here. Let's go ahead and look at that. 60 knots basically at 850 millibars. Absolutely insane. Let's go ahead and look at Mississippi. That is absolutely insane. That is insane. So yeah, we're looking at a very your ideal photographs, your ideal instability. Look at that 2,300 cape. You are looking at basically do something like these right here, but as you get a little bit further in, you're gonna be seeing some back soundings like that. That is a really good photograph. Pretty intense. Shear for sure. Looking at 46 knots between surface and 3 kilometers. As well be seeing some pretty intense SRH. Even your EHI values are pretty intense. And you have 1500 mixed layer cape, 2400 surface base cape. You have 3 cape at around 42. This is definitely pretty impressive when you're talking. This is day 5. Look at this sounding here. 2000 cape, 1000 mixed layer cape. 3K of 25, which is a little bit on the lower side, but look at the SRH at 537 between surface and 3 kilometers. Really, really, this is actually a really good photograph. I'm gonna keep it like that. Let's not go ahead and look at the overall warm sector though. I mean, your 18Z GFS is pretty bonkers if you look at it. I mean, this is a little bit. This is actually pretty concerning when you see something like that 5 days out. And it's been obviously pretty much agreed on. Even the SPC has pretty much been on it. Let's go look at the 18Z here. But yeah, we're gonna be just briefly looking at day 5 because again, it is 5 days out and things can change. So after this, we're probably gonna wrap up the video. But let's go ahead and look at the setup here. So 18Z, there's your surface low, right? Surface low is basically, let's see here, it's right. Okay, it's between the kind of the right there. Yeah, it's right there near Arkansas. Okay, yeah, so it's basically right here near the Arkansas and the kind of the Mississippi River Basin. So you're gonna be seeing your veer winds at 18Z, right, kind of just to the west of the, or just to the east of the Mississippi River. You're gonna be seeing as well potentially some pretty intense confluence bands. If we look at it, you're probably gonna be seeing your confluence band basically like right here. It's gonna be your confluence band. So we are looking at confluence bands basically predicted 5 days out on their GFS. I mean, look at that. Look at that photograph. That is absolutely insane. There you are seeing southeasterlies here. I mean, you do have southeasterlies. That is that. Look at that orientation between your 1 kilometer and 6 kilometers. That is your ideal tornado sounding here. Again, this is also going to be a pretty big wind day with your surface wind going to be absolutely, your surface wind field is going to be absolutely insane. So day 5 is looking very intriguing. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys later.